Welcome to Remembering the Forgotten, a space where leaders think out loud, without polish or performance. No scripts, no personas, just the quiet clarity that emerges when the noise drops and the mind is free to speak for itself. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Thompson, founder of the Impact and Legacy Collective and host of the Million Dollar Relationships podcast. And I was honored to be one of his guests. Kevin is a strategic partnership expert who has personally generated more than 16 million in revenue through high trust relationships alone. After building a $1 million one person business, he chose a different focus, helping entrepreneurs collapse time, cut through surface level noise, and access relationships that actually matter. Featured in Forbes and known as a true conduit of trust, Kevin operates from generosity, authenticity, and integrity. He creates introductions that don't just open doors, they lead to meaningful collaboration, long term value, and impact that reaches far beyond a single deal. And with that, Kevin, welcome to my show. Such a pleasure to having you.
Well, Marcus, I have been looking forward to this, and it's an honor to be here.
Happy to hear that. I'm honored to having you. Absolutely. So before we begin, when I say stillness, I don't mean peace or quiet. I mean the place in you, untouched by pressure, noise, or performance. The place that knows before the mind thinks. That's the layer I'm inviting you to speak from today.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Challenge
So with that,
accepted.
wonderful, wonderful. So here's the first question, which I would like us to talk about, and especially for you to think about and to share your thoughts and what comes up. So where in your life do you meet the you untouched by expectations?
Hmm. Hmm. It's interesting. When I was a little kid, we lived in this really small community where
Mhm,
everybody knew everybody, and I had my friends that I had just grown up with,
mhm,
and I just it was just such a great experience, and we lived in that community until I was in fourth grade, and my dad, where he worked, was like an hour away from where we lived,
mhm,
and so we commuted an hour each way to work, hour in the morning, hour at night, and so we moved to be closer to his work so dad didn't have to commute so much and we could see
mhm,
more of him.
mhm,
And at the same time, though, I was thrust into this place of not knowing anybody, now being out of the community that I grew up in since I was born, to now being in a place where I didn't know anybody. And to,
mhm.
I felt like an outsider, and to them I was just like, and it was a really interesting experiment. And for many years, I felt like I just didn't belong. I made some friends here and there for sure, but it was
Mhm,
not like what it was before. And then
mhm,
years later, I had, in 11th grade, my dad passed away at the end of my 10th grade year. And
mm,
my mom, after that happened, she wanted my brother and I to go to this private school. And I
mhm,
was hesitant to do that, but she was like, "Well, you just try it for 1 quarter, and if you absolutely hate it, then you can go back to public school." And
What a
at
mom.
yeah, and
Wow.
at public school, my class size, there was about 900 kids in my class at
Mhm,
that public school. When I went to the private school, there were like Well, there was 16 kids in my graduating
Hmm.
class at that private school. The whole high school had like less than 80 kids in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yet, as soon as I got there, one of my good friends, him and his sister went there, and so they like started introducing me to everybody.
Hmm.
And so right away, I just felt this connectedness. And oh
Hmm.
my gosh, this is my people. These are my friends. And I had the most amazing experience my 11th and 12th grade years of high school. And I made so many friends, and in fact, I even took two girls to the senior prom, two beautiful girls to the senior prom. And and it was such an amazing experience. And so, like, now I go back to that, and it's
Hmm.
like, you know what, I have now realized what it means to find our people, and we don't
Hmm.
have to work at it. It doesn't have to be a challenge. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's just so easy when we find our people.
Hmm.
And I have now for many years have found my people, and I help other entrepreneurs find their people. And it's so cool to see, because what you just said, there's no expectations of us. There is no
Hmm.
requirements of us. We get to be seen, heard, and understood by others. And we get to be surrounded by people who just love us for who we are, including
Hmm.
our idiosyncrasies or whatever,
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what an amazing place to be. And
Hmm.
so, I am really blessed in that I find myself, because like I'm in conversation with amazing entrepreneurs pretty much every
Hmm.
single day, and
Hmm.
it's really awesome being me. and uh, and it's really awesome that I get to just hang out and do cool stuff with my friends. And I could be doing this for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And of course, anything I can do to help others find their people, man, I'm all about doing that and helping them so that they can experience what this is like too.
So for you, it's about meeting the right people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because as
So,
entrepreneurs,
so what do you do, Kevin, if you do not meet people? Do you have sometimes that sense that you are feeling like having to live by somebody else's expectations? Or is that something that is so foreign to you?
feeling like I need to live by somebody else. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so my wife and my kids, I want to be the best husband that I can be. I want to
Hmm.
be the best father that I can be.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I suppose there might be some self-imposed expectations there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sure, like when my wife wants help with something, I want to be able to help her with that.
Hmm.
Whatever it is. And
Hmm.
I got two of my older daughters are over here because it's my wife's birthday today, and they're all out in the
Hmm.
kitchen
Hmm.
right now. I don't know what they're doing out there, but I hear them out there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, but yeah, there. I mean, y- uh, so I suppose that there is expectations there, um, but yet there are expectations that I'm totally cool with because
I
I
hear
I
you.
absolutely love that
I
woman,
hear
and I
you.
would
And
do
you can
anything.
tell in my voice there is almost a little bit of a marvel behind.
Mhm.
Because to get to that point where you say, look, if I have expectations, then they are either allowed by me or they're self-imposed.
Mhm.
And those come based on relationships.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, Kevin, have you ever had a time in your life where that was different? When you felt almost like you felt the expectations of having to be this way, having to be that way, having to be that for that person, having to be that for that job. Have you ever had this kind of a time in your
Oh,
life?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I got, uh, I spent 7 years working as a commercial fisherman on Alaska's Bering Sea. And I live near, I'm about 40 miles north of Seattle, Washington. And Seattle is a big fishing hub. And uh, and so in 1998, I went down to Seattle to Fisherman's Terminal, and I was just
Mhm,
hitting all the docks, talking to all the captains of all the boats, trying to get a
mhm,
job on a fishing boat.
mhm, mhm,
And none of them would hire you because they're like, man, we don't hire off the dock, and because you have no idea the work that
mhm,
you're
mhm,
getting into and all that. And we only hire based on, like, like the crew that we've already got. And when they recommend somebody, that's how
mhm,
we hire, because they can tell the story of what it's like.
mhm,
And
mhm,
but this one skipper, this one captain, John Waddell, I ended up talking with him, and he's like, well, he's like, give me your number. He's like, I'm not going to promise anything, but about a week later, he calls me up and he's like, Kevin, he's like, how fast can you be down here to the boat in Seattle? I said, well, I said, I could be there in 2 hours. He's like, okay. He's like, pack yourself up and come on down here. And when you get here, come up to the wheelhouse and see me.
mhm,
And so I did. And when I got up there to the wheelhouse to see him, he's telling me, he's like, Kevin, he said, you know what? He said, I have never done this before. And quite candidly, he's like, I'm nervous about this because
mhm,
you are in for, he's like, you are going to be working the hardest you have ever worked in your life. And you're going to be dealing with extreme weather conditions and extreme working conditions. And he's like, man, he's like, I am just praying that this works out for both of us.
mhm, mhm,
and uh and he gave me a shot. And I was so grateful to him. And at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I am not going to let this guy down. I'm not going to let these other guys on the boat down either.
mhm, mhm,
And I was like, I am going to work my tail off to prove that I belong here. I'm going to prove to John that he made a good decision in hiring me. And I did. And I will tell you, man, that to this day, that is the hardest. Those 7 years was the hardest I ever worked in my life. And but at the same time, yeah, there was definitely an expectation because John said it. He set the expectation was he said, "Man, I'm just praying you don't let me down," you know. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to let him down. I'm not going to let him down. And I will tell you that during those 7 years, uh, there were other people that got hired on boats, not just his boat. I
mhm,
worked on a number of boats over those seven
mhm,
years, but a lot of guys came on the boat and didn't pull their weight and didn't work out. And man, it really sucks when that happens because if one guy's not pulling their weight, everybody else has to cover, and everybody else
mhm,
has to work
mhm,
harder, and a lot of times they're not happy about that because they're already working hard, and
mhm,
so
mhm, mhm,
and so, yeah, I've definitely had those experiences. Um, and yeah, and I was like, I am not, well, the last year I was on that boat, 1995, we were in a heck of a storm and we got hit by a wave. I did, and it threw me across the railing. That's what this scar on my chin is from. I
Wow.
sailed across that boat. I smacked into that railing on the other side with my face, and I cut my chin open. I knocked my front teeth out, and but the alternative, if I wouldn't have hit that railing, I would have been right over the railing of that boat into the freezing
Yeah,
temperature of the Bering Sea, and that would have been it. I would have died right
yeah,
then and there.
yeah.
And so, but
So,
even at
so meaning you were on one of those big ships that go out, for example,
156-foot
and
fishing
go
boat,
for crabs and that
yes,
kind of stuff? Because I
yes,
love to watch that TV show
that
where
deadliest
they go,
catch, yeah,
yes. So
yeah.
you were one of
I was one
those.
of those. In fact, a bunch of those guys on that show I fished with. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So
To see those waves,
it's insane. It is
and
insane.
especially looking at those captains, how
Yeah,
they stir their boats through the waters.
yeah, yeah.
That's mainly why I watch it. Yeah, I love to see the count, but I
Hmm.
mainly watch it to actually see the craftsmanship of those captains.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
They're really
how
some.
high were those waves? sometimes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we've been I mean, I've seen, 15, 20 foot waves before, I mean, there can be some really big waves. And yeah. And it's a little it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. And but you know what we always did was I would just concentrate on my job, which was to get the catch onto the boat. We didn't really look so much. The captain in the wheelhouse, he'd keep an eye on the big picture,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
he'd let you know if it and we were in any real danger. I mean, and even when that
Hmm.
rave came in, he yelled at me. He was over the intercom system. He's like,
Hmm.
"Kevin,
Hmm.
duck!" But before I
Hmm.
could even react, we got
Yeah, it
hit.
hit
And
you.
we were just like,
Yeah.
and there's not a whole
Yeah.
lot you can do.
Yeah. That's when nature hits, then it really hits, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So you did that for 7 years.
I did that for 7 years to save up money to start my first business. Yes.
So let me ask you a question which I was wondering. Did you become the super connector because of that experience in the beginning of finding out how hard it was to actually build these connections so you get this one gig? Was this out of necessity that you started becoming this connector, or what was your drive?
So no, and what's interesting is it was another gentleman I had a conversation with some years back that we were just talking about my childhood, and
Hmm.
through that process, that was what I figured out was like, you know what, man, the experience that I had when I was younger was what
Hmm.
really drew me into what I do. I mean, that's why I get so much satisfaction from what I do now. It definitely
Hmm.
does not feel like a job at all.
Hmm.
But my connector ability, it a lot of it, at least initially, it was what's called, my one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, calls
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
unique ability,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that we have these unique God-given gifts that
Hmm.
each one of us has.
Hmm.
And so I love talking with entrepreneurs. I
Hmm.
love hearing about what they're working on, what they're excited about, what challenges they're having, what problems they're dealing with, what opportunities they might be wanting to take
Hmm.
advantage of. And I just naturally default to who do I know who might be able to help them with this?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
just do that. And
Hmm.
so over the years, I've really honed that ability, and I've really focused on becoming more and more effective at doing what I do. And now it's just kind of nuances, just little
Hmm.
discoveries here
Hmm.
and there, and but I've gotten really dang good at it,
Hmm.
really good. And but yes, so part of it was unique ability. But in my other business, I used to own a publishing company for 12 years, and I
Okay.
grew that business primarily through doing strategic partnerships with other
Hmm.
entrepreneurs who helped me get my
Hmm.
marketing message out into the world.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I was just so appreciative of all those partners. I did almost 600 partnerships over 12 years,
Wow.
and it was through that that I was just so grateful to them that I was always
Hmm.
looking for how else can I serve them, and it was
Yeah.
through making introductions. And so
Yeah.
I did it for years for free, just
Yeah.
because I appreciated these people in my life and just wanted to help them. And
Yeah.
it was the first big introduction that I made was 14, well, now 15 years ago. And
Uh-huh.
that's what first got me thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could have a business where I just got to do that all the time?
Hmm. Hmm.
And now that's been my full-time thing for 8 years now. It's what I do.
That's
So
incredible. So, how did you come up with making a business out of making introductions?
So it came so I the first big introduction that I made was these two guys, Perry Marshall and Brian Kurtz. And
Hmm.
within 8 months of introducing those guys, they were hosting this big event together back in Washington, D.C. area called the Titans of Direct Response. And there
Hmm.
was about 300 entrepreneurs who had attended that event. I don't remember what the investment was. I think it was like $2,000 or $3,000 to attend
Hmm.
that event. And the first morning of that event, I'm getting text messages from three of my friends who were there in attendance
Hmm.
at it,
Hmm.
almost all of them saying identically the same thing, going, "Hey, Kev, I'm at Brian and Perry's event, and they're on stage right now, and they're opening comments talking about you and talking about how this event would have never even happened if not for you being the one
Mm.
who had introduced them and stuff." And like I
Mm.
said, that it was that experience of getting those messages and just hearing about that experience that first got me thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could just do that all the time, you know? And so that got the seed planted. I will not say, I mean, it took some time for that to germinate. And you know, while I'd think about it here and there, and while I'd have conversations around it, I still had the other publishing company.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and sometimes those conversations were made me feel I was on the right track, and other times those conversations made me feel like, man, maybe you're crazy for wanting to do something like this because nobody else
Hmm.
had ever done it. And even to
Hmm.
this day, I don't know anybody else who has a
Hmm.
business where they do this and they get compensated for it. There's all
No,
kinds of
you're
people.
absolutely right. That's why I'm extremely curious because I'm sure that many people who watch our show now will ask exactly that question.
Yeah,
Because so many people, Kevin, as you know, are sitting on a treasure trove of connections,
yeah,
probably don't even know how to make introductions, to be honest,
yeah,
because it takes a very special skill and cannot even dream of earning a buck for an introduction.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's totally true. Yeah. And I had friends of mine that are like good connectors that I would have conversations with when I was trying to like just like when I was just exploring it for myself, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my good friends who's a connector, and I was telling him about this, and I'm like, man, I'd really like to have a business around this where I just got to do this all the time. And he's
Mhm.
like, you know, he said, man, he's like, Kevin, he said, I make introductions for people all the time. And I
Mhm.
couldn't even imagine charging money for that.
Mhm.
And I mean, I left that conversation, Marcus, feeling so dejected. Because here,
Mhm.
this was somebody
Mhm.
that I really respected, that I really admired, that I really
Mhm.
valued their opinion. And I left that conversation thinking, like, man, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm off my rocker. Maybe I shouldn't even be
Mhm.
trying to do this. Maybe, is this even ethical? You know?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And all these questions, you know. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until April of 2017 when I was having a conversation with a
Okay.
good friend of mine, and you know, almost in passing thought, we were done talking about what he wanted to talk about, and he was like, "Kevin, I just got to ask you, why have you never held an in-person get-together for all these
Mhm.
entrepreneurs that you know?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "I don't know, Tim. I guess I just never thought about it." And he's like,
Mhm.
well, he said, you should give it some thought because if you did, he said, I would totally want to be a part of that. And I'm like, you would. And, you know, keep in mind,
Mhm.
he lived in Tampa, Florida, all the way across the country from me. In fact, you couldn't get further away from me and still be in the
Mhm.
country, you know.
Mhm.
And and I'm like, so let me make sure I'm understanding you. So let's just say I held a get together here at my home and I charge whatever I charge. Are you saying that you would invest both financially and time wise, and you would hop on a plane and you would fly all the way across the country to
Mhm.
come to my place, right? He said, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm like, why would you do that, Tim? And he
Mhm.
said, because I know the kind and caliber of people that you would invite, and they would be people that I want to meet. And I was
Mhm.
just like, wow. And so that's what really, it was that conversation that really set this thing in motion. And just a few months later, August and September of 2017, I held the very first two events at my home, right here on the other side of this wall in my living room and stuff. And that's what launched the whole business.
That incredible. Where would you say that this idea of actually being able to do something so crazy, unheard of? And you know, Kevin, I'm asking before you talked with him, because this idea came to you, and I don't think you asked whether it's possible. You just
No,
thought,
I did.
what
No,
if,
I didn't.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did this idea come from? What do you think?
Well, it came from Brian and Perry seeing what transpired after I
Mhm,
introduced those two guys.
mhm,
And also just and my goodness, since then, 15 years ago, those guys have become such great friends. They have done so many amazing things together. They have created millions and millions in revenue together and impacted millions of people's lives.
mhm,
And and that for me, it's not even the revenue or the money. It's not what inspires me. It's the
mhm,
impact and
mhm,
and the thought that I can do what I do and impact so many people's lives, so many people who will never even know I was there, but I
mhm,
know,
mhm,
and that's cool by me,
mhm,
and it just
mhm,
makes me feel good. And and
mhm,
I and I want to just want to make my biggest impact.
mhm, mhm,
And even right now, we regularly make introductions that lead to 5 figure, 6 figure, 7 figure
mhm,
opportunities. We do that all the time. And
mhm,
in my where I'm going, I want to be making 8 and 9 figure impact.
mhm,
And that's
mhm,
not a secret because I put that out there all the time. And because
mhm,
I put that out there that hey, this is where we're at and this is where I'm going, well, I now
mhm,
find myself in conversations with people who, ooh, you know what, man, this has the possibility for 8 or 9 figure impact right here.
mhm, mhm,
And but it's the impact is what inspires me. And revenue is the natural organic byproduct of impact. The bigger impact we make, the more revenue that gets created.
mhm. I don't want to impose. I'm just curious because, I was in sales and I'm pretty knowledgeable about these worlds. When you started out, how did you picture your business model to be?
You know what, I didn't even give it that much thought. In
I'm not
fact, I gave it
surprised.
so little thought that the first couple of years was so painful. so, so
So interesting. So interesting, Kevin.
So, yeah, the first 2 years, oh my goodness. So, those two events that I held at my home in August and
Hmm.
September of 2017, I had the first event, I had 15 entrepreneurs that came to
Hmm.
that event. And on the opening morning of that event, I'm just like, on one hand, I'm like, wow, look who's sitting in my living room right now, because there's these amazing entrepreneurs. And on the other
Now
side,
let's
I'm
go
like,
to the Bahamas and let them do this stuff.
yes,
now you
yeah,
now you had to facilitate. Tell me
yes,
more about that.
yeah. And so I'm like, wow, look who's sitting here. And then at the same time, I'm like, God, please let this be valuable for them. and
Tell me more about that. I love it.
but I just started by just saying, hey, nobody knew each other,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, for one, every one of you, all 15 of you, are just absolutely amazing entrepreneurs who are making such a
Uh-huh.
big impact in the world, and for you, getting connected with just the right people, having the right conversations with the right people for the right reasons are going to
Mhm,
be what's really allows you to grow your own business and make a bigger impact. And that's
mhm,
what you're going to have happen this week over the next couple of days
mhm,
here.
mhm,
And
mhm,
and I'm going to help facilitate that. And what my goal is I want you to make real, meaningful connection and relationships with people here that you're going to walk away from here that you're all going to be opening your networks for each other, helping each other, supporting each other, and the thing is whatever is shared here stays here, and you're not going to get an ounce of judgment from anybody here. You are going to be met with nothing but open arms from like-minded people who, if we could help you, we would love nothing more than that, because every one of you are just givers through and through. You couldn't show up any other way. And I also want you to not only give, we know you're going to do that, but I want each one of you to receive in a really
mhm,
powerful way. Let the rest of us pour into you and just open yourself up to just receiving that
mhm.
and taking that in and accepting that. And so that's what happened over the next couple of days.
It's
And
incredible.
at
That laid the ground.
Yes. Yeah, I laid the groundwork
Wow.
and I still to this day, I do lots of stuff virtually. And
Mhm,
every time I'm hosting a group on Zoom, I just did a group
mhm,
this morning with 4 or 5
mhm,
entrepreneurs. And every time I'm doing that, I lay the foundation for the
mhm, mhm,
conversation because
mhm,
that is an
mhm,
integral piece that has to be done
mhm,
in order for
mhm.
the conversation to take place. Otherwise, the
Yeah,
right conversation won't take place.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so and but at the end of that 2.5 day event, I just simply said, hey, if you got value from this and
Mhm,
you created some new relationships here that you just know are going to allow
mhm,
you to grow your business and expand it and make a bigger impact. And if you would like my help in doing more of this and you'd like to be more
mhm,
intentional about this, I would be totally open to doing that. And
mhm,
I would be
mhm,
open to, any one of you, I would be willing to ride with you for the next year and
mhm,
make a
mhm,
lot more introductions for you. And what I would
mhm,
like for my role in that is I would like $25,000.
mhm,
And
mhm.
and right away, my friend Travis Sago was sitting on my couch and said, well, I'm in. And then 5 other people followed his lead and said yes to that offer.
Wow.
So 6 people said yes to that. 1 month later, I had another event. I was supposed to have 15. One guy couldn't make it last minute, so we had 14 at that event, but 6 more people said yes. So in a 1 month period, I had 12 people that had invested $25,000. And I started
You probably
working with them.
never
What I
seen that much money
Not
at
at
one
that time
place,
in my
right?
life. No, not at that point.
Yeah,
I had not.
yeah.
No, that was because that was, yeah, that was that I had never had. And not only that, it was so easy because it just
Mhm,
felt right.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
was so excited going into that because I'm
mhm,
like, wow, I'm so, and like they were all people that I knew already.
mhm, mhm.
And, and over the next 2 years, a total of 30 people said yes to that offer over the next
Wow.
2 years. And so
Wow.
30 people had invested 25,000 with me. And by 2019, by September, I remember September 2019, being on a flight home from Dallas to Seattle, wishing that the plane would just crash because at least my wife would have the insurance money because I was at my wits' end. I was like, I felt like I was working my tail off.
Uh-huh.
I was having one-on-one conversations with all these 30 entrepreneurs every week and stuff. I was
Yeah.
trying to make introductions for them, and I'm like just, scrambling and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes I was hitting some home runs, but most of the time we were maybe hitting first base, second base, and
Yeah.
and, and I felt like I was letting people down. And of course the story I was telling myself was way worse than reality. But in the moment,
Mhm, mhm.
man, it was the darkest place of my life. And
Wow.
I fortunately I had a good friend reach out and just point some stuff out to me, and they were telling me, Kev, you're I don't think this is bad as you think, because she goes, they were like, have you actually talked with these people about how you feel? And I'm like, no, because I was scared to have that conversation,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're like, I don't think this is as bad as you think it is. I think you should talk with a couple of people because they're like me, Kevin. They know you. They know who you
Mhm,
are. They know what
mhm,
your intention is, and they probably love you just like I do. And the
mhm,
other thing there's like, I just feel you might be you just need to figure out a model that works better for you and stuff for this.
mhm,
You're just
mhm,
not using a model
mhm,
that's in alignment with who you are and how you want to show up. And
mhm,
imagine this though, now hindsight's 2020, because I
mhm,
look back at that now and go, well, if you're trying to make connections for entrepreneurs, why would you do it in a bubble, having one-on-one conversations with all of them? Why
mhm,
not? Why wouldn't you start bringing them together and
mhm,
facilitate like you did at the
mhm.
event?
Exactly.
And I'm like,
Like you
because
did
what
it
you did at the
initially.
event is not what you're doing now. But I
Right.
did
Yeah.
not compute that did
Yeah.
not compute at the time,
Yeah.
Marcus,
Makes sense. Yeah. Makes
Yeah,
sense. You
yeah,
kind of moved away from your first love, which was so natural, into almost a sophistication of a consultant.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that totally burned you out, as you
Yeah,
say.
it burnt me out so
What
much.
was your saving grace? Because I assume it was not just that phone call with this friend and Kevin was the old buddy again. What was it that actually brought you back into
It
sanity? Was
Well, it was having conversations because then my friend challenged me,
interesting.
start having these conversations because I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. And they
So you
were
reached out to
absolutely
those
right.
30.
I did. Started having conversations with those clients, and they were right. It wasn't as bad as I thought. And so that
Yeah,
alone, I was just like, wow, okay,
yeah,
I could breathe again,
yeah,
because it
yeah.
wasn't nearly as bad as I thought.
So let me
And
ask you, please, two questions because I need to understand this. It's so fascinating. So thank you for sharing so openly. What was it you feared was the case? And what did you fear that the clients were thinking in regards to you?
yeah, so I feared that they thought that I wasn't delivering, that that I was dropping the ball and not being of value to them and stuff. And I just, because that's my biggest thing is I
Mhm,
want to be of value to people, and I mean,
mhm,
heck, I don't even bring on a client nowadays unless I
mhm,
feel going into it. I don't ever want to feel like I have to deliver for somebody. I want to
mhm,
feel like I get to deliver for somebody.
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
I have this feeling that like, oh man, this is going to be
That
good. This is going
lands.
to be so good,
Yeah, yeah,
And
that lands.
yeah, yeah,
It's the alignment you need to have with this
yeah,
client that
yeah,
there will never be a hidden pressure on you unless it's been openly communicated.
yeah.
And if the scope of that expectation doesn't meet what you believe you can deliver, you rather walk away of that deal, right?
Totally, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah, yeah.
I hear you. So today, what is for you a scope that you say, I can deliver and it makes the money for the client worthwhile? You must have
So,
figured that out in that
oh,
many
we've definitely
years
got that
because
figured out. Yeah, we've got that figured out. So there's a few things that are in place. So, as far as what business they're in, I do not care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
I
Uh,
understand that. Yeah,
as far as size of business, they're anywhere from, I don't know, 300,000, 500,000 a year on the low end, all the way up
yeah,
to 750 million on the high end and everywhere
yeah.
in between. But the commonalities are that every single one of them is using their business as the vehicle to make their biggest impact. That is the reason they're in business.
I love that. I love
And
that.
um, they also they place a very high value on relationships.
Yeah,
That has to be a given as well. They
yeah,
are also a person who just shows up ready to help and serve and contribute and pour into others. That is hardwired into their DNA, and they couldn't show up any other way and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And the other piece, they have something of value, something where a value where a client is worth on the low end, what, 50,000 a year to them,
Hmm, hmm,
on up to, I don't, to whatever, I don't care, it might be
hmm,
200,
hmm,
300,000 a year.
hmm,
And then they already know how to, when they are put in front of the right person that they just
hmm,
get, and that person gets them, they can
hmm,
communicate their value effectively so that that
hmm,
person can make a decision that, yep, this is what I want. They're
hmm,
already successfully selling whatever it is that they sell.
hmm,
And so
hmm.
all those pieces have to be there in order
Hmm.
for me to be able to be of value to them. And if
That's
all those
fascinating.
pieces are there, and then I'm like,
Yeah,
yes, this is going to be good.
yeah. So
Because
when you
it's really
spoke with
easy.
those 30 people, how was it? what were the feedbacks? Like, what was the question you asked the 30, and what was the answer to your question?
Well, I just asked them a really simple question. I asked them, how would you rate the experience that we've had together over the last,
Hmm.
whatever that working period is, whether it was
Hmm.
6 months,
Hmm.
18 months, 2 years, whatever,
Hmm.
how would you rate it on a 1 to 10 scale?
Hmm.
And not one person was under a 6. I thought there was
Hmm.
going to be some that were going to be
Mm.
ones and twos and threes. That was in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody was
Yeah.
under a 6. And I was like, I was
Yeah.
blown away by that, you know.
Yeah.
And there was some eights, nines, and tens too, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that one question let me know
Hmm.
that, like, wow, this is not nearly as bad as I thought it was, you know.
That is so incredible. So that basically leads me to two conclusions. The first one is fear. That was what drove you at the moment, and basically hoped that that plane would crash somewhere around Dallas Fort Worth, so your wife has the insurance money.
Yeah.
And that fear turned out to be false evidence appearing real.
Mhm, mhm.
So if you had just lived in your mind, that false evidence appearing real would actually have led to end your life.
Yeah.
But instead, you went to the source of the information you needed
Mhm,
and
mhm.
asked a simple question.
Yeah.
How pleased are you in regards to us working together between a 0 or 1 and a 10?
Mhm, mhm.
And you've been blown away how much tricks your mind actually played with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you receive data, how did you change your scope in terms of working with new people? Were you realizing that you basically had no guardrails of expectations and basically promised them a unicorn? How did
So
that change?
what's interesting is I didn't even make any big, huge promises to them to get them to say yes, you know. Um, I just said, I'll start making introductions for you.
I
And
see where this is. It was your own expectation
mm,
that put you under so much pressure
yeah.
that you were absolutely sure no one will be above a 3 or 4 or even a 5.
Mm,
Because how can somebody else feel I'm enough if I don't?
mm, mm, mm. That's
Wow, thank you so
exactly what
much
it
for
was.
sharing that. How did you get out of that? Because that is debilitating.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crippling.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did you get out of that, Kevin? Because
Well,
that's a
so
masterwork to do.
yeah. So all of this was happening around September, October, November of 2019, which was right before COVID hit
Oh
in
yeah, I know.
like February
It's
of
like
2020. And COVID just ended up being this godsend because what happened was when COVID happened and everything was shut down, I was like, well, let me just start using Zoom and getting
mhm.
my entrepreneur friends together. And so I would just start hosting these Zoom calls and I'd get like five, six, seven entrepreneurs together and just start connecting them. And they were like, Kev, this was so awesome. If you did this regularly, I would totally invest to be a part of this. And so we did. We started charging for it. And in 2 months, in March and April of 2020, 52 people said yes to that. And in fact, I ended up capping it because I'm like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to manage this.
You
But we
were
had,
all back in your living room back then.
yeah,
Now I have
now,
50
now instead of
people.
my living
What
room,
the
now we're
heck
on,
am I doing with
yeah,
them?
yeah. And so
Wow,
now,
congratulations.
yeah, now we're doing it on Zoom. and and it was really awesome experience. And now I'm just like, oh, this is way better. This is way better because now I'm just there with everybody, and
Yeah.
then now I can see what I see, and I can point
Yeah.
stuff out and say, "Oh, you need to connect. I need to introduce you to this." But then everybody else started doing it for them too,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
became
Yeah.
the whole thing. And
Yeah.
so now you talk about having some exponential power instead of just doing it in a silo one to one.
Yes.
Now we're doing it in a group, and our whole
Yeah.
what happened was now we created the network of networks is what we did.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
an powerful thing where everybody is supporting each other.
Yeah.
Everybody's opening their networks for each other.
Yeah.
And it took until September. So we launched it in, so I'm just trying to figure my years here, 2020. So it took until 2012, September of 2012. So it took almost 2.5 years
Mhm.
until one of the members, Misty Lown, announced on her monthly call that she had just added $1 million of revenue to her business over the previous 30 days after talking with this guy, Richard, that I had introduced her to. And I was like, what? I'm like, wow. I was like, Misty, congratulations. I was like, that is amazing. And I don't want to take up the whole time on this call, but man, I would love to talk with you one on one and get
Yeah.
all the details about how this
Yeah.
unfolded. How did this
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah.
You know. And so we did that. And that's when I realized that's who I'm most valuable to right there is
Yeah.
Misty and people like her. And so now I start looking, well, and I realize there's only like five, six people in the group that have the
Yeah.
foundational things in place, all the stuff you asked me about earlier, all these
Yeah. Yeah.
foundational things in order
Yeah.
to be able to have a win like that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so I committed to finishing hosting that group for the rest of the year. And
Mhm.
then in January of 2013, I was like, I am only going to serve this kind of an entrepreneur going forward.
Mhm.
There were five
Mhm.
of them in the group that moved forward with me and
Mhm.
invested at a much higher level now that I realized
Mhm.
that like I and they both realized
Mhm.
You're going to be way more valuable to me now. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
could see that too. And so, but even at that, my income went way down. But at the same time,
Mhm.
my bandwidth opened wide up too. And so ever since
Mhm.
then, now once I made that distinction, once I made that discovery of who I'm most valuable to, now I don't
Mhm.
accept somebody unless they meet all those criteria. And yes,
Mhm.
that makes the
Mhm.
pool way smaller, but yet
Mhm.
right now, today, I have 23 clients that I serve.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
absolutely amazing experience serving
Wow,
those individuals.
congratulations, brother, really. Did the moment ever come where you said, I'm actually doing a hybrid system, meaning I charge for my consulting, and at the same time, I take a cut of what is being generated through my introductions? Or did that
Well,
never come to that place?
that's kind of where we're at now. Because what I do, I mean, I give them the option because the ownership track, if they want to do the ownership track, it's just a flat 4,000 a month.
Yeah,
And then they keep 100% of any revenue,
yeah,
any and all revenue that comes. But most everybody is on the partnership track.
yeah.
And what we do is we just do a 2,000 a month retainer, and then they do a revenue share of between 15 and 20% with me, depending on their business model and stuff. And
It's so
so
simple, right?
yes, it's really simple. It's really simple. Yeah.
It's leave it or take it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Congratulations.
And
No,
so,
I'm really amazed. And you know, I meet a lot of people, but I'm so amazed about your clarity, which started all in your living room.
yeah. Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely taken a
Wow.
little while to get here for sure. And there was some ebbs and flows and some highs and lows and some really dark moments in the midst of it all.
I'm
And
sure.
but I will tell you, it's been an amazing journey, and every bit of it, every piece of it, is what led us to where we're at right here, right now. And
Wow.
and I'm really excited for where we are right now, and I'm also just as excited for where we're going to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years, because I can only imagine what's going to be taking place. And it just continues to
Absolutely.
grow, continues to expand, continues to become making a much bigger impact.
You and I, we definitely have to continue the conversation off camera because I believe we will go into a way deeper level than we have been so far.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm so grateful that you have come on this show, Kevin. I want
Same.
actually to end our call with one very pivotal question. You
Okay.
described the moment when you flew toward Dallas Fort Worth and you really wished that the plane would go down.
Yeah, yeah,
If someone, Kevin, who is listening, feels lost in that noise, what is one thing you'd want them to remember is still true despite of that noise, despite of the darkness?
yeah. I'll tell you, one thing that I learned for sure is that it's never as bad as we think it is. And we can be brutal on ourselves. We can be so brutal on ourselves. We can be our own worst critic. We can tell ourselves all kinds of stuff that, like, that seems so real, because we
Yeah.
look and we see it right in front of us. Look at what's going on.
Yeah.
And we paint this picture, but what we do is we paint it way more dramatic, way bigger than
Mhm.
what it really is. And
Mhm.
when we find out that, like in my case, just asking one simple question. Yeah, did it take a little bit of courage to do that? You bet. Because I thought the answer to that question was going to be way worse than what it was. But when I found out that, like, wow, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was at all. And
Yeah.
just one simple question. And I can tell you that if when you're in that dark spot, it's probably not as bad as you think it is. And just reach out to somebody that you care about, who knows you and knows who you are and knows what you're all about. And just, you're not going to get any judgment from them, because they know you,
Mhm.
they love you for who you are. And just let them know
Mhm.
what you're going through. And you know what, just let them be a sounding board for you, because
Mhm.
it's not as bad as you think it is.
Wow, what a beautiful word to end our show today. Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm really blessed to have had you as a guest.
You bet. You bet. My honor.
So this was Remembering the Forgotten, a conversation held in clarity, not performance. If something in this exchange helped you see differently, carry that forward.